The Boy in Chains. The slaver ship Virex Dominion drifted in the black, silent void like a festering wound in space. Inside, its corridors pulsed with the low hum of containment fields and the occasional hiss of atmosphere compensators. A brutal harmony that served as lullaby and warning. In cell 27B, a boy sat quietly, legs crossed, hands in his lap, eyes closed. 10 years old. Pale. Human. He had not spoken once since his capture. Still mute, Commodore Nax clicked his mandibles in irritation, eyeing the boy through the reinforced observation pane. The tall, insectoid alien adjusted his regal armor, its gold segments shimmering under the sterile light. "Confirm, sir," said Officer Drix, a reptilian subordinate. Hasn't said a word. Doesn't respond to pain, threats, or food incentives. Just sits there, like a statue. Primitive species. Likely feral, Nax muttered. He'll fetch less at market, but perhaps someone wants a novelty pet. Yuri heard them, but he didn't react. He'd been trained not to. Not by soldiers or teachers. By his mother. There will be a time when they come. Malish, she'd said one cold winter night, placing a bone pendant around his neck. If they ever take you, do not speak. Do not scream. Close your eyes, and remember who you are. He remembered. Even now, sitting in the cold metal cell of a starship beyond Earth's orbit, he remembered her hands, calloused, strong, pressing the carved talisman into his fingers. "This will carry my shadow," she had whispered. "My eyes, my wrath, my way." Elsewhere on the ship, the crew scuttled about, maintaining systems and exchanging rumors. Some had heard odd noises during the last hyperspace jump, scraping sounds like claws on hull plating. Others swore the ship's AI briefly lost connection and came back singing in a language no one recognized. "Superstitious nonsense," barked Nax when reports crossed his desk. "This is a K-class transport, not some haunted dreadnought. You're all soft." But even he hesitated when he passed near the human cell. The boy stared too calmly, as if he knew something they didn't. In the cargo bay, Technician Roll stirred his cup of nutrient broth and scowled at his console. The diagnostics kept flagging one object for interference: the human boy's pendant. No radiation, no power source, no tech signatures. Just carved bone. And yet, it's screwing with my scanners, Roll muttered, running a fresh analysis. It's not supposed to do that. He marked the pendant for removal and filed a maintenance request. It was denied. Nax had declared the boy non-threatening. That night cycle, Yuri opened his eyes for the first time in days. He felt it, not in sound, nor sight, but in the bones of his spine, the marrow of his breath. She was moving. Somewhere, through the infinite void, through the folds between galaxies and the dark paths few dared to remember. She was coming. He whispered a single word, soft as a leaf falling in a forgotten forest. "Mama." 2 decks up. Nax felt a sudden chill. He turned, expecting to see a malfunctioning coolant pipe. Instead, a long crack had appeared in the reinforced window of the observation lounge, though no impact had been recorded. Faint frost traced the edges of the crack, forming an intricate pattern. It looked like a tree. Back in cell 27B, the boy stood for the first time. He walked to the center of the room and placed the pendant on the floor. Then he sat down again, cross-legged, and waited. In his quarters, Commodore Nax opened a data file sent from a recent black market trader, a stolen Earth cultural packet. He scrolled idly until something caught his eye. Baba Yaga, a mythological witch of Slavic folklore, said to live in a hut that walks on chicken legs. Feared for her cruelty, revered for her power, often portrayed as protector of children or their devourer. He scoffed. More Earth nonsense. Ghost stories for savages. He didn't notice the lights dim slightly or the sudden distortion on his console, an image flickering into existence before vanishing. A hut walking on claws. A woman's eyes, burning. In the brig, Yuri smiled faintly. He didn't need to scream. He didn't need to fight. He just needed to wait. Because his captors had taken the wrong child, and they had no idea what they had awakened. The whispering forest comes. The jungle world of Quarnus, 7 pulsed with unnatural quiet. No insect calls. No animal rustling. Just wind, dry and whispering through the trees like it was afraid to speak too loudly. The outpost crew noticed first when the surveillance drones stopped transmitting. Then the external turrets went offline. Then the shadows moved in ways they shouldn't. Sergeant Vaughn, a grizzled Falerian mercenary stationed there for routine customs enforcement, watched the tree lean uneasily. "She's out there," one of the engineers whispered, eyes wide. "The Terran witch. They say she's looking for her cub." "Cut the hysteria," Vox snapped. "One woman doesn't bring down Empire tech." "She's not a woman," came the reply. "She's the Baba Yaga. 3 light years away, aboard the Virex Dominion." Commodore Nax reviewed the incident reports flooding in. Entire outpost personnel on Quarnus, 7 missing. 0 biosigns. Structures intact. Equipment melted and reformed into wooden shapes. Primary comm tower replaced by a 20-meter pine tree. Roots fused in a power grid. Final transmission. Children's lullaby in ancient Earth tongue. Origin unknown. Nax read the reports with tightening mandibles. He shifted uncomfortably in his command seat. A pattern was forming. The planets where Virex Dominion had recently docked were being silenced. Not destroyed, reclaimed. Made unrecognizable. He dismissed the pendant before. That bone trinket around the human boy's neck. Primitive, yes, but now it was marked in the system as an unknown interference vector. He tapped a clawed finger against the data slate. "Officer Drix, has the human boy spoken yet?" "No, sir. Not a word. Still carries the pendant. He smiles sometimes. At nothing. I want a full background. Scan Earth's cultural databases. Find a name Baba Yaga. Find out what it means." The intelligence officer complied. Within the hour, Nax's private terminal was filled with historical documents, folklore translations, and declassified Terran myth files. He skimmed, dismissive at first. Wooden houses on bird legs, flying mortars, a witch with iron teeth. But the deeper he read, the less he mocked. Stories spread across centuries. Children vanishing, yet returning changed. Villages found abandoned, with trees growing through the remains. A figure, always a woman, living on the edge of civilization. Not evil, but not good. A law unto herself. And always uninvited. Unstoppable. Unbound. One classified Terran military memo caught his attention. Baba Yaga Protocol. Do not engage. If a subject matches classy mythic parameters, withdraw forces. Do not fire. Do not speak. Do not look directly into her eyes. Codename, Vasilisa Ivanovna. Status, unconfirmed. Suspected metahuman with transdimensional mobility. Capable of interstellar traversal via unknown means. Nax leaned back in his chair, the glow of the terminal painting a sickly light across his face. "Vasilisa." In the cell, Yuri opened his eyes again. He didn't flinch when the lights flickered, or when the low hum of the ship's systems began to warp into something else, woodwind and strings. A lullaby, barely audible. He looked down at his pendant, now glowing faintly with warmth. A sliver of ash drifted from it, vanishing into the air. "She's near," he whispered. On Quarnus, 7, Sergeant Vaughn was no longer barking orders. His men were gone, simply vanished. He'd seen one taken. A shadow moved across the clearing, and with it came the smell of burning herbs and damp moss. The mercenary froze, hand on his plasma rifle. Then he saw it, a silhouette in the trees. Tall, cloaked in tattered robes of bone and wire. A face half-shrouded, eyes gleaming gold in the dark. She walked without sound. The jungle bowed before her, and behind her, a house, standing on massive chicken legs, creaked into view. Each step crushed machinery and soil alike. He tried to run. Roots burst from the ground, wrapping around his limbs, pulling him into the earth. The last thing Vaughn heard was the voice of a child, his own, calling for help. But his child had died years ago. Back on the Virex Dominion, the crew had gathered outside the brig. They didn't know why. It felt wrong, letting the boy sit alone, untouched. Several suggested removing the pendant by force. "No," said Officer Drix. "I'm not touching that thing." "Cowards," spat a younger recruit. "It's a kid. He's not even armed." "He is," Drix said quietly. We just can't see the weapon. Deep in hyperspace, Vasilisa paused. She stood barefoot on a corridor of stars, her house behind her, its talons dug into the cosmic flow. Space bent and twisted around her like wind through a dying forest. Her fingers hovered above the air. She traced symbols, ancient, older than language, across the darkness. One of them pulsed red. Her son. She stepped forward, and the stars screamed. The house with chicken legs. The Virex Dominion dropped out of hyperspace near the Outer Rim trade station Aurelian Drift. A common pit stop for smugglers, slavers, and corrupt officials. Neutral ground, unofficially outside Galactic Empire law. Commodore Nax paced the command deck, his claws tapping on the metal floor. Full system scan, he barked. No anomalies. No signal traces. No Earth vessels. Confirm visual silence. Officer Drix glanced up nervously from his console. Confirmed, sir. Space is clear. But they were wrong. Out past the station's scanners, hovering at the edge of real space like a shadow underwater, something waited. Inside the brig, Yuri sat cross-legged as always. But now, the pendant around his neck pulsed in rhythm with something deeper. Each throb sent a low vibration through the floor. He was no longer waiting. He was listening. In the docking ring, the station's automated systems picked up a vessel approaching. No registration. No transponder. No heat signature. And yet, the structure was visible on external cams. Wooden. Slanted. Twisted. A hut, impossibly large, standing atop two massive, clawed chicken legs, drifting through vacuum as though gravity had never been invented. The AI tried to hail it. Instead of a response, the station's speakers began playing a Russian lullaby, distorted and grainy, like a recording dug out of grave. Commodore Nax heard it from the bridge. He froze. Seal all airlocks. Activate internal security. Bring the human boy to the bridge. Now, as the slaver crew scrambled to obey, an unnatural wind began to blow through the corridors. Not from vents, from nowhere. Dust swept in spirals. Frost crept along the walls. The ship's lights flickered, dimmed, then turned red as if bleeding. And the Virex Dominion, despite being sealed, began to smell of pine needles and smoke. Two deckhands dragged Yuri from his cell, grumbling, uneasy. The boy walked without resistance. He smiled. That made them even more nervous. What's so funny, kid? One growled. She's already inside, Yuri said softly. What? I said, thank you for the escort. Then the lights went out. Security teams moved through the dimmed corridors, weapons raised. Movement sensors glitched, triggering phantom targets. Holograms of forest trees flickered in and out. One by one, the teams went silent. Not with screams, just silence. Drix stood beside Nax on the bridge, trembling. Sir, something just walked past the forward viewport. I don't know what it was, but the lights surged. Static filled every console. And then, the doors creaked open. Not slid. Creaked, like would under strain. She stepped in slowly. Vasilisa Ivanovna. Tall, wrapped in a cloak of woven bones, feathers, and black roots. Her hair flowed like smoke. Her eyes gleamed gold and green, with stars reflected inside. She carried a massive mortar and pestle, each step scraping deep gouges into the metal floor. She looked around. No one moved, except Yuri. He walked forward calmly, unafraid, and placed his small hand in hers. The moment they touched, the ship groaned like a beast in pain. Commodore Nax drew his plasma pistol. I am an officer of the Galactic Empire. Release the child and vacate this vessel. Vasilisa turned her gaze on him. The pistol turned to rust in his hand. Then his hand turned to bone. Then he turned to ash, blown away by a wind no one else could feel. The bridge began to rot. Moss grew from the consoles. Roots split the floor. Sap dripped from wires like blood. Trees erupted from control panels. Yuri looked up at his mother. You found me. I never lost you, she replied. Drix dropped to his knees, begging in his native tongue. She turned to him. Do you have children? She asked. I did. Then run. Now. He didn't hesitate. He ran. He was the only one who would leave that ship alive. The hut outside gripped the hull with its massive claws. It tore the ship open like a crab shell, and within minutes, the Virex Dominion was gone, swallowed into the churning roots and walls of the walking house. Aurelian drift scanners recorded no explosion, only trees and silence. In the galactic center, a distress beacon flickered once. Then another from another outpost. Then another. But they were not calls for help. They were warnings, spoken in hundreds of tongues, carved in wood, bone, and blood. The Baba Yaga walks the stars. She comes for her children. Pray she's not looking for yours. A name written in roots. The Virex Dominion was gone, vanished without wreckage, without debris, without a whisper. In its place, a field of ancient trees now floated in low orbit around the Aurelian drift, roots twisting through the void like grasping fingers. The Galactic Empire called it a catastrophic systems failure. But no one believed that. Not after the recordings leaked. Not after the footage of a wooden hut with bird legs appeared across half the black market channels in the RIM systems. Not after a single name began showing up in whispered comms between mercenary crews, bounty fleets, and planetary governors. Baba Yaga. Some said she was a myth. Others insisted she was a Terran biological weapon, a leftover god from Earth's forgotten past. A few called her protector, but everyone agreed on one thing. She was real, and she was looking for her son. Weeks passed. The slaver network unraveled like thread cut from a loom. Compounds were found empty. Ships drifted crewless. Auction houses collapsed in flame and root. All signs pointed to a single force moving through the stars. Unseen, unstoppable, and indifferent to negotiation. They had taken a child, and now they were paying the price. Drix, the lone survivor of the Virex Dominion, stood before a panel of Imperial Inquisitors in a cold obsidian chamber deep within Vrax Prime. He had not slept since his escape. His eyes were sunken, his scales pale. He trembled as he recounted what he saw. She didn't use weapons. She didn't need them. She looked at the Commodore, and he was gone. Gone like smoke. And the boy? Asked the lead Inquisitor. Drix swallowed. He walked with her, smiled, like he was home. Silence fell across the chamber. One Inquisitor leaned forward. And you're sure the name she answered to was Baba Yaga? I didn't hear it from her, Drix whispered. I heard it from the trees. Far from Imperial eyes, in a forgotten system no longer mapped on NAV charts. Yuri ran through a forest beneath a sky that bled stars. He laughed as wind tugged at his coat, trailing leaves in his wake. Birds, metal-feathered and wood-winged, swooped overhead. The air smelled of cinnamon, frost, and old smoke. The forest was alive, but not dangerous. Not to him. The hut creaked in the clearing behind him, rocking gently on its legs, dozing like a contented beast. Inside, Vasilisa stirred her cauldron. Not soup, not spells, just silence. She stirred silence into itself, letting the shadows whisper. You are still restless, she said without turning. Yuri stepped in, brushing leaves from his hair. You said they won't come again. They won't. But that doesn't mean others won't forget. Or grow bold. I'm not afraid. I know. She turned, finally, and knelt before him. That's what scares them. In deep space, a council of warlords gathered in secret. Alien mercenaries, crime lords, rogue AI, all swore vengeance on the Earth Witch. Not because of moral outrage, but because her crusade was bad for business. The slaver economy collapsed. Fear spread faster than profit. Entire routes were abandoned, safe havens deserted. So they built a trap. A fleet of ghost ships, baited with signals of orphaned human children, drifting silently in deep space. Armed to the teeth. Traps within traps. A message sent. Come find your son again, witch. We're waiting. She came. But not to the trap. She came to their dreams. They woke screaming in languages long forgotten, clutching at their eyes as they bled roots from their sockets. Those who slept saw a forest growing from their ships. Those who stayed awake began to hear laughter through the hull. One by one, the fleet's systems failed. Not from hacking, from rotting. Circuits turned to sap. Guns grew bark. Engines sprouted fungus. And the stars turned green. In the grove between worlds, Yuri sat beside his mother under a tree older than memory. Will they ever stop coming? He asked. No, she said, but they will always regret it. He nodded. Can I go back someday? To Earth. She paused. If you do, it will not be the Earth you remember. It has changed. You have changed. I want to see it anyway. She smiled, soft and tired. Then we will go together. The tree above them swayed. And far, far away, on a quiet blue planet, a single wooden hut appeared at the edge of a forest. Its legs folded beneath it. Its door creaked open. Waiting. Epilogue. The Empire never declared war, but it never recovered. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, every child now knew the rhyme. If they take you far from home, if you're caged or lost alone, don't cry out, don't shout or weep. The forest walks. The roots run deep. Say her name, but say it low. The Baba Yaga hears you, though.